Big welcome to you all to our channel. We are back with another video, and this time by the ending of the Bushiroad Springfest BSF and the starting of the new Bushiroad Championship Series for 2015-2016. So we call it Bushiroad Championship Series, or BCS, and now we'll have to think about going to Japan again. And for me, it would be a fourth year going there, and it would be amazing to have the chance to go for this year as well. The thing about going to Japan is that it's a nice icing on the cake because you're enjoying a whole year of an amazing Vanguard and all of these events in different countries. If you can attend to different countries, or if you live in a big country like the US, you have different cities that you can go into, which could also be really, really exciting. For this video, we will talk about the best Bruce deck in my opinion, which is the ViaMadneSS Bruce, Diabolo's ViaMadneSS Bruce. I call it the ViaMadneSS. That's the name of the deck. So the ViaMadneSS deck is a very strong deck. Going first, you can set up a very strong Persona right turn, which would mean that your opponent will be like destroyed on that turn. Maybe if they get a lot of defensive triggers or a defensive OT, or they just have a lot of good defensive hand, they will live through that turn, but they will die on the next. So yeah, the deck is very, very, very strong. Going second is still good because on your first grade 3 turn you can hit your final rush and final burst, and if your opponent was so stupid enough to give you the 4 damage, then you could just destroy them right away. So again, it's a very, very, very strong deck, and it has just no breaks. So let's talk about the deck. In this video, I'll talk about the flexibility of the deck, of building the deck different depending on how the meta will shift. The meta right now will have a lot of strong decks. The only deck that we have that is slow is Shiranui, that you will see here and there, but we don't have a lot of other stride decks or slow decks. So the decks are very, very fast, and they could destroy you on their first grade 3 turn, and they have a lot of restanders, like almost like the top 6 decks of the meta, all of them, most of them, restand the rear guards. And one of the things that will change our strategy about choosing which heals we want, which defensive card we want, how we build the deck. All right, so let's go through the deck and talk a little bit about it. I will show you how the deck is built and how you could change it around to make it up to your playstyle and also the meta we're in. So for the right deck, you could play whichever crest you like. I like this one because it's from Dark State, and I just like the art. Also, it fits like the playstyle and the playmat and everything. Although with this playmat, you want the other one, but I do still like this one more. Or his is also nice. His is also nice, but I like this one because it's from this year. So the right line is the same as always. You do need to play Matt because it's a Diabolos and he needs all Diaboloses. Steve and Richard are actually very good. The chance to call them later on in the game could be very effective. Calling him on your first grade 3 turn if your opponent's still grade 2 is effective because he hits 15 on a 10k, and after that he will be better in almost every every situation, except if you boost him by an 8k, then he's better. But it's really nice to have them. I do play the DSR in my right line because I do think that it fits the art more. This one is of course not full art, and this one is nice as well, but it just doesn't fit this. So I'm playing all 3 options and one more of the one that I like the most, which is this one. So yeah, that's the right line. Not much to say about that. For the grade 3s, this is a standard and I would not change anything about it. You play 3 more copies of the main grade 3, so you will have your Persona right. This is a 6 or 7, sometimes 5, but most of the time 6 or 7 attack deck, which means that Persona right makes a huge difference. That's a 70k that you're boosting your field with. So that will make a huge difference if you have it or not during your kill turn, or actually every turn that you can persona ride. So 3 more of the main grade 3. Alright, next we have the Diabolos Diver, Julian. Julian is an interesting card on himself. He is the one that could give you that extra attack. If not, if you don't have a Julian, you could still, with other callers, you could still call your second attacker, which is Gino, to the field, and you still have a 6 attack deck, which is still very, very strong. But with Julian, you will have a little bit more flexibility and you will have stronger columns to call. Also, he is a very strong attacker, so that's one of the reasons why you would like Julian. Julian could also be good in the early game, as in when you hit your grade 3 turn, as in he will also put pressure on your opponent there. Now we have the grade 2 lineup, and the grade 2 lineup and the grade 1 lineup is the lineup that you could be very flexible in. So we play the 4 copies of Eli, the 4 copies of Jamil, and normally we also play 4 copies of Gino. And this is where the flexibility of the deck comes in. The Eli you would want and need at 4. You could even play it at 5 if you add an ace unit to the deck. I tried it out, I didn't like it because no shield, and because of the fact that he of course also costs you energy, and it just doesn't feel right to play a unit which is not a Diabolos, because you could not call it, you could not leave it on the field, you cannot intercept with it, he cannot call on the top of it. So it's just a lot of ifs and maybes. If the first skill of him did not require you to have a Diabolos, then of course we would play him by the fact that you could eat him with your final rush turn, which is your first grade 3 turn. If your opponent's on grade 2, then it would be good. But because the final rush and the final burst, both of them need you or require you to have a Diabolos unit, you just can't play him. So this is the grade 2 lineup, Gino at 4. Now, if you play this grade 2 lineup, your grade 1 lineup will be, of course, 4 copies of Orlando, very important, you cannot play less. 4 copies of Heinz. People would say you could play less, I disagree, you do need the 4. And then you have 2 copies of Nell and 4 PG. Now, which cards you could not take out and which cards you could take out to play something different? First of all, the Eli we could not take out. The same goes for the Orlando and the Heinz, although that a lot of people would say, yo Debo, you could take a few of the Heinz out. I would leave them here so you could see the grade 2s that we will not take out. So I'll leave them just like this, and these are the grade 1s. So the grade 1s and the grade 2s. So some people would say you could take a Heinz out. I disagree. I think that you should not take a Heinz out. The reason is Heinz is your attacker, your countercharger, and also the card that gives your deck the extra consistency by adding cards from your drop zone back to the soul. Of course, the PG we will not take out, so that's another card that we will put right here. And this would leave you with this. Now, if you don't have your Julian in the early game, then your Jamil is the card that gives you that extra attacker and something that you could countercharge, so his skill could be free. The extra soul is nice. You could soul charge a PG, soul charge a persona, right? Don't soul charge your OT. So I do like the Julian at 4. He's also 10k shield, so I really don't see a reason to cut a Julian. The same goes for Heinz, which means that your flexibility of cutting or removing cards would stay only on the Gino and the Nell. And that means that if you want to build a deck a little bit more defensively, then you take a Gino out and you add a Nell in. If you want to play the deck more offensively and thinking more about going first all the time, then of course you would play the Gino and take out the Nell. What does this do? If you play 4 Genos, you will have a lot of Genos. You only need 1, which you will recycle the whole time. So there is no reason to play 4, but you have to see them 1. Because if you don't see it, then you have that just 1 less attack. and his attack costs you just the 2 soul, which is not the same as the Julian, which costs you a counterblast. But the Geno is important as well because he could add your PGs. He leaves an open record circle in the front row, which is good because Pasakra will eat them anyway. And he could add your Persona Ride to your hand, so he could set up your field. If you don't have Persona Ride, you play Eli. Eli will get you Geno and the Persona Ride. Then at the end of your grade 3 turn, he will go into your soul and add you the Persona Ride back. So that's why the Geno is more important than people think that he is. But if you could manage playing the 3 Geno, then the Nell will come in handy, because drive checking that Geno in the late game could just be that 15k that you needed, and now you just have a 5k. While with Nell, he's just a 20k shield. It's just insane. You could just drop a Nell and a 15k shield, and you're guarding most of your opponent's strong attackers. And remember, in this deck, we don't play front triggers for the reason that we play draws and crits. So the 20k actually makes a big difference. So this is, in my opinion, the way to play it, but you do need to practice with it because you do need to have the Geno in your soul, which means sometimes in the early game you keep him, you discard him, and then later on with Heinz you add him into your soul, or you have to just try to get him with Eli. So this is how your deck would look like on the grade 1s and the grade 2s. The grade 3s, we already covered that. And which means that you play just one less Geno. If you want to take out the Heinz, you could, and from that card, you could add whatever you want. Just don't take out the Heinz. Alright, for the triggers, we play 6 to 8 crits. I choose to play 8, and I added him back in, took out the ladies. It just feels better, and it feels like more for the Apollos units. I call her Bazooka Meisje, which is rocket launcher girl or bazooka girl, and I call him bazooka jongen, which means a rocket launcher or a bazooka man or boy. So yeah, that's pretty nice to have both of them in the deck again. For the heals, I do play 2 on 2. I always played the 4 because it's also Diabolos, which is good to have her as a booster. But with the format and how it looks like and everybody restanding, it's I was like, I should play 4 of this. And then I played 4 of this, and then I felt like sometimes in the early game I did need the 15k, or on the first attacks or whatever, I needed the 15k. So now I do like the combination of the two. If you have a knowledge of your opponent deck, you know which one to keep and which not, which just helps you depending on your hand. And most of the time, if you can, you would leave those for the second attacks. And otherwise, sometimes the 10k does the same as a 15k if you're overguarding anyway. So it depends on the situation, but I do like the 2 on 2 way more than I expected to. The 3 draws, yes, I don't play fronts in this deck, although the fronts are good because you do have 2 more attackers to go. But I just feel like the draws are more effective, especially in the current format, because they rush you, they give you a little damage. And this deck, the one card that you draw could make a huge difference to just set up your whole field. Sometimes just one Eli could just make such a huge difference for your turn. Last but not least, the overtrigger. We've talked a lot about this and the Dark State OT or the Red OT, or which one you would like to play. For me, the Red OT is the killer OT, although that the Dark State OT is the one OT that is better in the long run. And I was pretty much convinced that the Dark State OT is the best one. And I still maybe think that it is, but this Red OT is the killer OT. And because in this deck you could actually filter out the cards that you add to your soul, the cards that you put on the field, with the skill of Eli, with the skill of your regalia piece. I feel like this OT is better because I'm seeing my OTs more in the late game than in the early game. But before that, I was like, before we had Eli and with the other deck, with the Unrivaled Bruce, because Unrivaled Bruce also is of course a restanding Vanguard, so that does make a difference. But with that deck, I did not have the chance to filter out the deck, which means that I did see my OT in the early game more. But then again, it depends on the situation. If you get this in the early game, it's still good. It does still give you a draw and a call, which is good, because with that, if you call it something like a Julian or a Jamil, you could still have even one more attack if you didn't have something on the other side. If you already did and you just used it to just call something, you still get a draw out of it, and it's another second draw. So it's not a lose situation. It's a win-win. For the regalia piece, we play the fire regalia. Of course, you could play whatever regalia piece you want. Angel Leather is still good. It's good against Shiranui matchup. It is good against a lot of matchups because they could just not target an entire field, which is pretty good, especially, against Pasagra, against a lot. But I do like the Fire Regalia way more because of the chance that it gives you a full field. Like, it's giving you Eli or a Julian or whatever. Could just be that missing puzzle piece to your combo. And that's it with this deck. Like, it's all like a puzzle. You will just have to get the right cards to have the right cards in your soul to be able to go and make your big turn. If you don't have those cards, then your turns are just way less effective, and that does make a big difference in this deck. So you need to try to find the right cards, and you do need to play this deck a lot. You need to practice it. You need to understand how the deck works to play it. It's not an easy deck to play. You need to have a good understanding of the game, but you also need to have a good way to calculate the odds of you getting that card or not, because otherwise you will have to change your strategy. You need to know what to keep in the first starting hand, depending on the way that you build your deck. Like, if you're giving up the Geno, the fourth one, then there is a big chance that you will not see him in the game. And if you don't, then you could not go full combo, and you could not add cards to your hand. You could not add your PGs to your hand. So Geno is one of the most effective cards to have. So that's important. You need to know what to do with your Julians. You could not be very rushed of putting them on the field, especially because of the retirement or the binding power of those decks that we play against nowadays. So that's also very important to know what to keep and what not. Playing the deck a little bit more defensively with the extra copy of Nell means that you sometimes want to stay on the 4 damage and not go to the 5th one, which means that your Julian will not hit the extra 2k to make your opponent guard with 5k more, but it does give you a bigger chance to survive their next turn. But if you're giving up all of your Nells, or you've seen all of them, then of course you could take out the 5th damage. So again, a lot of things shift when you only change one card, and it does make a big difference. Alright, so in the next video we will demonstrate what I just explained throughout a few games, and I will show you again going first or second, because that's also changed. And hopefully, if you guys pick up this deck for the upcoming BCS, I hope that you guys will do great. I think that this deck has a lot of potential, and it is unlocked, but it's just people don't give it enough attention because they just jump into the next best deck they find. But nothing is like how insane this deck is. Look at this hand. There is again so much to talk about when it comes to ViaMadneSS Bruce, or Bruce in general. It just, people don't feel the same way about it as me or we, because you're watching this video. Of course you're interested in it. Stay tuned for the next video. So see you next time.